I had been feeling a bit thin. Like slowly ground away. Pretty much everything I did just revolved around some sort of task that I felt had to be accomplished. So I had goals and I had expectations, but I didn't have much else. And in my experience, there is only one real cure for this. And that is a ride. A big ride. A ride worthy of telling other people about. So that's what I did. 45th birthday this year. I had started planning, obviously, months and months ahead of time. But me and my dad took what we hoped would be an epic road trip. Plan was to fly into Vegas, rent motorcycles, do a big loop of California. And it kind of needed a theme, or rather a theme just seemed to be pretty appropriate. My father has trimmed trees his entire life. And there was a period in my life where I was also a tree trimmer and I worked with my dad. And he had never been to the West Coast. He had never been to California. He had never seen the Pacific, and he had never seen giant trees in California. So that's what we set our sights on. With very poor footage, even worse sound, I chronicled our ride, though not in its entirety because I just started doing this and honestly I don't have any idea what I'm doing. Adventures have a rejuvenative effect. And just in the preliminary, just in mentioning that this was my plan, I had so many people say things like, oh man, this is awesome. This is like a bucket list thing. You and your dad are going to do it. The secondary plot to this is that hopefully someone will watch it. Someone who hasn't rolled the dice on a big adventure yet. And hopefully it will spurn them to go and do it. Because I see a lot of people who are fortunate enough to make riding a large part of what they do for recreation. I feel oftentimes like these bikes behind me, they just sit dormant the majority of the time while I'm working. And I would love to be able to get out and ride more. And who knows, maybe it might spur us all on to open the garage doors and to get outside in the sun and in the wind and just do it.
Well,
Yep.
and we go. I'm just gonna go, I haven't done anything except coast this, so we'll go that way and do a little turn and I'll get a little hand and then we'll head out.
Okay.
We'll do the loopy in the cul-de-sac.
Sounds good.
I already met his dogs.
Yeah, I heard them.
Yeah, they're cool.
Heard them barking. This is it. This is the official start of the adventure.
It is.
Yeah. From here, great peril,
So how do we turn it
great
around?
triumph awaits. Yep.
Where's the thingy to turn it on?
There you go. It looks good on you.
I used to hold a really hard line about the highway. I've softened a bit through the years, done several large rides in my life, and there was always the caveat that I don't give a shit about the highway. If it takes longer, that's what I want to do. That's the part I want to see. I want to get out, away from the cities, drive through small towns, through rural areas, through farmland, and through country, and to experience a little slice of America in all of these places that I have never been before. One of the reasons why that opinion has softened is because Dad and I started doing trips out west. And back east, you don't really see very much from the highway. I had an amazing time just cruising down here, I-15 south, on our way outside of Vegas. It was the perfect beginning to our first day's ride. Just seeing all the buildings zoom by you and stuff like that, and get the kind of pomp and grandeur of what Vegas is like. This essentially was the stuff that I was trying to avoid. Just long stretches of nothing out in the desert. But even that in and of itself is stark and beautiful. But we really are on our way right here to try to get into it and see some really cool stuff that we absolutely would not have seen if we were on the highway. Primm, Nevada is only a couple miles, maybe not even a mile from the border into California. And this was our first official stop of the day. We're here for a very interesting artifact that I found while planning this trip. Initially, I was kind of struck by the fact that it was even in a casino. I thought it would be in a museum or something like that. Inside there was a car that when it was bought at auction in 1973 for $175,000, it was the most expensive antique car ever bought at auction. Today valued at around $1.2 million. This car was stolen by Bonnie and Clyde from Topeka, Kansas, around a month before their death. It was owned by a couple named the Warrens. It was parked in their driveway with the keys in it. Later, law enforcement set up an ambush, and Bonnie and Clyde passed away in this car. You can see the bullet holes. There was 167 bullet holes. Gary Primm purchased this car in the early 80s and used it as an attraction to get people inside his casinos. Next to it is the car that was made for famous New York mobster Dutch Schultz. It's a 1931 Lincoln Deluxe Model B. It features lead armor in the doors and 1-inch thick glass in the windshields. This car was later owned by Al Capone. On the right-hand side, there are these towers that are glowing white. This is Ivanpah Solar Generating Station. What you see below the tower, also that looks like white, is an array of mirrors that are all pointed towards the center spire. This generates electricity by putting steam into the towers and using the concentrated solar energy to turn turbines and generate power. Our first stop, or rather kind of stop, in California was the agricultural checkpoint. There's no cars around. I didn't really see what anyone else was doing, but I'm slowing down. I'm getting ready to pull up to the window, and I see that there's nobody in any of the booths. So yeah, we just keep rolling. As a little bit of backstory, this is the second long ride that me and my dad have done. First one was back in 2019. We shipped bikes from Pittsburgh to Tacoma, Washington, and rode back through Washington State, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, up into Canada, and then back home. That was an amazing trip, and I'd been itching for a really long time to do another one. I'm on a rented bike that I got from this amazing dude out in Las Vegas whose name was Martin, and we used RiderShare as our rental platform. I had a fantastic experience. The first ride and an extended ride give you heavy discounts, which was amazing and worked in our favor. But there was a caveat that I'll talk about a little bit later. This was the absolute highlight of the first day's ride for me. We had just entered into Mojave National Preserve. It is a beautiful day. It's mild, 75 degrees, and I am enchanted by the novelty of the desert being from Pittsburgh. I think the desert is beautiful, and I love being in the desert. But I don't want to be in the desert when it's 1,000,000 degrees, and today was absolutely perfect. We're gonna park the bikes right here and get our first of many selfies in front of a. Oh yeah, that's a terrible shot. It looked like I don't know how cameras work, but a lot of shots of me and Dad in front of like national park signs. Morningstar Mine Road was, we're really getting into the interior of the preserve, and you can kind of see in the video, everything that is right by the road, those little shrubs, sagebrush, whatever it is, they were just so bright. And the desert generally was green because of the time that we were there. This is all the last few days of April in 2026. We'd seen Joshua trees before, coming outside of Vegas, but it just tended to be one or two, and they were kind of small. This section going into the interior was absolutely awesome. These trees were very big, tons of branches. I learned a little bit about Joshua trees when I was planning this trip. Tree is a complete and total misnomer. They're actually a member of the yucca family, also closely related to the asparagus family. And what looks like limbs coming off was actually where a flower was pollinated, and it shot up off growth from there. And there was only one thing in the desert that pollinates these, and that is the yucca moth. On Google Maps, somebody dropped a pin for a very large Joshua tree that I had all the intents of stopping at and taking a picture. And it kind of became a theme throughout the ride where Dad had mentioned, hey, if you find a good spot, stop over. We'll take a picture with us in front of a Joshua tree. And it never happened. It was like the moment I realized that that's what I wanted to do, I think that's it right there. That dude was big. It was like the moment I realized I wanted to do it, everything just kept falling apart, and we actually never got a picture with me and Dad in front of a Joshua tree. The road going through here is mostly straight, but it did have these little sections where there would be like 1 or 2 dips in the road, which were kind of fun. You know, you feel the suspension kind of lighten up on you a little bit. Nothing you could catch air on, but it was still pretty fun. So this is Kelso Depot, and this was a really important train stop, especially when they were steam locomotives and they needed to be refilled with water. This was an essential spot, especially when you're heading into Los Angeles. A lot of people made this stop for the reason of the train being filled up with water so they could continue on their journey. Unfortunately, we couldn't go into the depot because of construction, but as you can see here, I snooped around a little bit, poking into the window. This old horseshoe downer top looked really cool, and it's mostly been restored, but you can imagine what it would be like back in the day. You know, you're on a cramped rail car, you're heading out to Los Angeles or somewhere out in California, and you get to stop. They really tried to give it this sort of desert oasis feel with the palm trees and stuff like that. So throughout at least the last hour of the ride, maybe even before that, we could see Kelso sand dunes getting larger and larger on the horizon. You can catch them off to the right-hand side here after I go across the train tracks. And I really wanted to make that a stop, but unfortunately, the road was closed to get back there. Before I knew that, I was still kind of bummed because I signed an agreement with RiderShare as part of my contract that I would not take this bike off-road, which they define as any road surface that is not paved, which did limit us in 1 or 2 spots of what we could see throughout the trip.
Much more impressive off camera.
Yeah.
Yep. How's is your hat staying on?
It appears to be, yeah.
Going 70 plus?
Well, fast as we came on that road.
Okay.
We're leaving Kelso Dunes, still on Kelbaker Road, heading south to do a small stretch on Interstate 40 to Ludlow, California. And admittedly, this is kind of where the narrative falls apart. The camera's relatively new. I still don't know what I'm doing. I was having a hard time actually seeing if I was recording what I wanted to record or not. So there was some elements that I missed. Ludlow, which was once a thriving town, is now essentially just 2 gas stations, a hotel, and a cafe. But it was important for us because this is where we were going to hit a section of Route 66 and take it into where we were going to be staying for the night. Dad had asked me if we were going to be able to do any of Route 66, and I had a small portion included, but I extended it to do just a little bit more. Here's us kind of hopping on right outside of Ludlow. This section, though, ran right next to 40, As you can see, there's not too much going on there. We're on our way to the next stop, this really awesome place in Newberry Springs called The Barn. When we stopped in, the door was open and there was people inside, but they told us that they're actually not open. It was a work day for them. They're closed Monday and Tuesday because they're a bar. But they were amazing. They treated us like family. We got to meet the owner. The place is still fairly new. They're doing improvements to it. And I knew that I was in the right place because the moment I sit down at the end of the bar, I can hear these three dudes talking about the old punk bands that they used to see back in the day. Social Distortion, the Adolescents. They were dropping a whole bunch of their experiences. One thing that I kind of regret that I missed was my mistakes on our approach. My plan was just to stay on 66 and go right into Barstow to the hotel. Dad and I are riding. Of course, I don't have any of this footage, but we're riding and we come around a corner and the road just stops. It literally goes from pavement to absolutely nothing. So we're both like, this can't be the right way. We turn around, we catch a turn onto National Trails Highway, which kind of toggles back and forth with Route 66, and we go that way a little bit, and we are at the front gate of a Marine base that is closed with a huge gate across it. So we turn back around, we get on Route 40, tear down Route 40, get to our hotel. By this time, it's getting late. Dad and I haven't really eaten anything that wasn't purchased from a gas station after our hotel breakfast that morning. We're tired. They have this amazing Mexican restaurant in the lobby of our hotel. We go down, we order way too much food. Have to leave it because there's no way to, take it with us. We go back to the room, I take a shower, and I end up repacking all my gear before I go to bed so that the next day, everything's there. I know where it's at. I know how to find it. It was an awesome day, and they're just going to keep getting better. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to stick around for the next episode, Barstow to Three Rivers.